Greetings to everyone who joined us today in what is our last webinar for 2025 in local government conversations. For all of you who have been with us, specifically from the audience, our panelists, we are grateful for your support more than anything else, having gone through the year up to this point. We are grateful that you are still with us and you have joined this morning. My name is Zolani and the surname is Zonyane. I'm the Editorial Director, Webinar Curator and Moderator within the Municipal Edge. And of course, I've got Dan Klassen from Future Cities Africa, who have been a great partner over these past 4 years, because we are closing our 4th year today, having hosted these webinars on various topics, looking at local government. Today we've got quite an interesting topic, looking at various developments. We are still battling with the climate change issue. There are various climate actions that then require climate adaptation, both in thinking, in planning, and of course in allocating the resources. The topic for today focuses more on green, resilient, and thriving, where we are trying to explore what municipalities are doing in preparation for the future, because we can all agree that the current infrastructure that we have in many, if not most municipalities, does not withstand the current climate shocks, the climate disasters that we often get exposed to. Shortly, I will be allowing the panelists just briefly to introduce themselves. But before doing so, and as you might have seen during the registration, that we ought to have had 4 panelists, but life happens, and given this time of the year, there are competing priorities that led to 2 of our panelists not being able to join this morning. But we then said we will continue nonetheless, because at the end of the day, the conversations should go on. We've got you as the audience. We've got our panelists who will then be, I'll say, sharing what is happening within the space. And in going there, it would be great to thank Future Cities Africa, as I've mentioned, Dan and the team, because without this platform, without this idea, we will not be having these conversations that we have had for the past 4 years. And of course, our team at the Municipal Edge for continuously working hard in ensuring that we've got intriguing topics. We've got the guests that we host in our webinars. And of course, to our sponsors, Ntiyiso Consulting Group, of which we've got a representative who will be presenting this morning, and business engineering. We are always grateful for that support. We often say to the audience, the webinars are free, but I've grown to learn that in the life that we live in, nothing is really free, because at some point one must, I'll say, foot the bill. And through our sponsors this year, we have managed to come this far. And again, it's collaborations that we believe will grow, will strengthen over the years, to ensure that these local government conversations continue, especially in 2026. It's going to be a busy year in the calendar of local government. We are busy with the review of the white paper There are review of various legislations, including your Municipal Finance Management Act. We've got elections in 2026. National Treasury is busy with regulations around MSCOA, as well as the systems and various other topics, which we believe we'll be able to see you again in 2026. And of course, we've got those entities that have been supporting this cause in the Chartered Institute of Government Finance, Audit and Risk Officers in SIGFARO, the South African Local Government Association, and of course, the Center for Municipal Asset Management. Also to the support that we've received from the partners, them sponsoring, even proposing some of the panelists to contribute in the conversations. We are grateful and we appreciate that support, which we believe in the coming years it will continue as such. Briefly, let me allow Christa to come in just to introduce herself and the municipality she is coming from. But apologies from our side and her side. There seems to be something not working out this morning in terms of her video. So if you don't see her face, don't think that you are listening to a bot. She is a human being. Morning, Christa, and welcome.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having us. It is so nice to talk to everyone. Unfortunately, like some people couldn't make it. At least I'm here, but now the face doesn't want to show. But there is a photo of myself on the invitation. So I'm Christa Venter. I'm the manager for Waste and Environmental Management at the Kouga Municipality. For those not knowing where Kouga Municipality is, it is St. Francis, Jeffreys Bay, Humansdorp, the Gamtoos area, the area of the bigger surf. So that is, people sometimes say Kouga, but no, we are Kouga Municipality. And climate change is obviously a big issue to us. Thank you for that.
No, thanks a lot for that. Let me also allow Dzingira from Ntiyiso Consulting Group to introduce himself as well.
Thank you, sir. And Christa, pleased to meet you. My name is Dzingira Matenga. I'm the Managing Director of Ntiyiso Business Consulting. Background, I spent quite a long time, but I won't give away my age, in the consulting industry in various guises. Worked for the likes of Ernst & Young. I was a partner there, worked for McKinsey & Company. Also spent time in the mining industry as well, which is quite severely affected by let's call it climate change issues, and also contributes significantly to climate or carbon emissions. Have worked across multiple technologies within the green space. I've also advised clients on how to do carbon baselining, how to reduce their carbon footprint, and also how to see it as a commercial opportunity. At Ntiyiso Consulting, as some of the listeners may be aware, we are one of the market leaders in terms of advisory work for municipalities. We work with the likes of the DBSA to support municipalities to improve their revenue management and revenue completeness. And we also work with them to improve their organization effectiveness. Very honored to be on your last webinar of the year, and looking forward to engaging with you, colleagues.
No, thanks a lot for gracing us as well with your presence. And to the 79 of our audience or attendees, as you always know, your inputs and insights are always welcome. And we appreciate, as I've indicated in the start, that you've been with us in these webinars for the 4th year. As you know, our Q&A option is open. If you happen to have a question to our panelists, but also we always say some of the questions that we might ask are the questions even from the audience where we might be getting answers and responses. Also, the comments section is also open, as we normally do. We value your insights because we might be having the panel, but we do have other experts within the audience itself. It then assists in the conversation, but also knowledge exchange and learning from each other, you are always welcome. Without really spending more time, let me allow Christa just to lead us with a presentation where she will be sharing what her municipality is currently doing in ensuring that the future that we talk about, Kouga Municipality is prepared for that future. But in arriving to that future, there are many other actions that need to be taken, executed in then placing or positioning our municipalities for them to be able to withstand the climate shocks that we continue to experience. Christa, welcome, and let's take your presentation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. As I've indicated, I'm from Kouga Municipality. We're on the Greater Garden route. We actually have areas like Cape St. Francis, Hankie. As you all know, Hankie is where we get all the citrus from. And we've got Himansdorp. That is one of the oldest towns in our area. Jeffreys Bay, where we have the big surfing competition annually. Then we've got Luri, also specifically Nachis, but also citrus. Then Oyster Bay, that is the far end of Kouga Municipality, and an area that is very affected by climate change and issues that we're having there. Then Patensi, also another citrus area. St. Francis, that is 90% of the people living there are on holiday homes. We also have the wine on water every year that is happening there. And then we have Thornhill, where we've got a very interesting area where we've got Crossways, that is a village that is totally off the grid. And we as a municipality are trying to assist in all those areas, and specifically supporting villages like that wants to be sustainable and self-sufficient. So important to us is to have a clean and healthy environment. That is an essential part of our lives. And for that reason, Kouga Municipality takes efforts in reflecting that everyone has a right to an environment that is not harmful to their health or well-being, and to have an environment protected for the benefit of present and future generations. Although we're a small municipality, we really take all of these things very seriously, and I think that is why we are quite successful in what we are currently doing, is because we are focusing on the environment so that we can preserve it for our future generations. So Kouga promotes the concept by embracing the green economy and implementing long-term sustainable solutions through various green projects and programs. So this presentation serves to give insight on the programs led by Kouga in enabling the transition towards a greener municipality, taking into consideration climate change and sustainable development goals. So you can see I've got the logo of the sustainable goals on there. We as Kouga Municipality are as part of that, and we would like to continue being part of the sustainable future. So this is just an overview of the Kouga area. You can see it's the area that is covered in the little red points at the end. We bordering on the Bobbyhans Kloof Nature Reserve. Then we almost on the way to Port Elizabeth. And then, as I've mentioned, the furthest points there is Cape St. Francis and Oyster Bay. And then in between is our inland areas, the Hankie, Patensi, Andrieskraal, and quite a lot others. So we actually have a very vast area. So a lot of the areas are still rural, and there's still a lot of developments taking place. They are talking about having Tuispunt there in Cape St. Francis, the Oyster Bay area. But these are the things that we all need to look at. What impact does climate change have on all our developments? Although the size is huge and we're covering quite a big area, you can see the kilometers, we only have a population size of about 112,000. I think it's now gone up to about 120, but this was the latest figures that we are still working on. We've got 15 electoral wards. Number of councillors, we've got 32 councillors, and I've already mentioned the areas. So we are focusing on a specific one of our wards. We will be having by-elections. So that's a big issue that we are currently dealing with, preparing for the by-elections that will be on the 26th of November. And then obviously, as you all know, local elections that will be happening in 2026. So issues that is actually having an impact specifically on our area from a climate change is the increased temperatures. It is variable rain patterns and the rising seas. So coming with all of that, we have from our agricultural areas, we have the crop yields. As you all know, it has been affected. Also, we do have quite a lot of fires, and we had some big fires in 2019, and then before that in 2016, the huge fires where there was a lot of houses that burned down. So important for us is to see how we actually deal with that. And then it is the irrigation and demands from the agricultural areas. Then the impact on biodiversity, like I've said to you, we still have a lot of rural areas, areas that has got a lot of biomass. Our biodiversity is quite important to us. And by having all of this, we actually find a loss of habitat and some species. On the coastal side, it is the issues about sea level rise, the impacts on property and livelihoods. The current situation specifically that we have is in Oyster Bay, where we find a lot of houses mostly all covered by sand. It is costing us quite a lot of money every year just to go and try and remove the sand from the roads. The demands from the people for us as a municipality to come and remove the sand in and around their houses. So that is a problem, and people don't understand that when you develop townships and you develop areas like these, what the impact is going to be on the long run. When you actually bought a house there, maybe 20 years ago, you did not think about that your house is one of these days going to be under the sand. And this is currently happening. So then we go to St. Francis area, and there we have a problem with the beach erosion. There is very little beach left. And when you come and visit, you will be quite surprised that we are actually busy with putting together, obviously with the community, the St. Francis Ratepayers Association, introducing groins into the area. The first groin is almost complete, and there's already a huge impact just by adding these groins into the area. So hopefully the plan is then to increase the beach space, the beach area again, have the sand not going all the way back to Cape St. or to Oyster Bay, but actually to create a beach area where people can then actually enjoy themselves again. But all of this come at a cost. So this is not cheap things. And at the end of the day, the residents that bought there will have to fork out some money to actually preserve their properties. We also have a major problem in the Paradise area, where we've got houses on the brink of almost falling into the sea. The erosion of the beach has been so bad that those houses are now really on a cliff that is, with big storms and that, it's going to really fall into the sea. So these are the challenges also we had in 2019, 2021, 2023, huge storms that affected our infrastructure. So we're still dealing with infrastructure challenges of rebuilding some of our infrastructure that's been damaged by these storms. And all of this is due to the impact of climate change. And I think people don't always realize that how it's going to impact on the livelihoods and your property. Then if we go to the health issues, it is all about air pollution, infectious diseases that is happening. The more people are actually coming into our areas, there's more air pollution, and we find not only infectious diseases for people, but we have a lot of animal diseases that has been coming into our areas. Then if we go into the settlements, like I've already mentioned, is that the issues is flooding and then the infrastructure impacts. And then a decrease of quality and quantity of water. We were very close to day zero, and we were very lucky that day zero never happened, that we've been able to actually avert that. And then luckily we also had some rain. But yesterday, the Kouga Dam was at 65% from being a year ago, it was over 100%. Now we're going back towards that, facing the drought, and that is why we as Kouga Municipality are really putting all efforts in to actually deal with the climate change. So I'm not going to go into any theory. Everyone knows what is climate change, but I would like rather to tell you what are we as Kouga Municipality doing to try and address these issues. So you'll see a lot of photos. So I can share quite a lot more, but I've only had so much time to present. So this is just a snapshot of what we are trying to do. So the pillars that we are focusing on for climate change is on waste management, energy, conservation, water conservation, and then biodiversity. So those are the key things that we feel that is impacting, and then obviously on the coastal areas, but that comes together with all of that. So some of the projects that we've already implemented is solar systems, water pump for municipal boreholes. We sank quite a lot of boreholes. So some of our areas like St. Francis and Himansdorp are really reliant on borehole water when we're getting near to the drought. So we have been installing quite a lot more just to actually don't have to have that issue about when we're facing day zero again. We've replaced all our street lights with LED street lighting. We are doing rainwater harvesting at most of our municipal buildings. We've also donated Jojo tanks to schools, to creches, to anyone that actually looking for us to assist them for being not facing any drought or not to have water. We are assisting them with putting up Jojo tanks. We also have a water detection vehicle that as soon as we know that there is a problem, that people think that there might be some water losses, we can send this vehicle and it actually detects where the water is leaking from or what is the issue with this. Then, as you all know, I think everyone is facing the same problems in their municipalities, is aging infrastructure. So we do have a lot of water breaks, pipe breaks. And with this vehicle, we actually can detect it very quickly and try and resolve the problems. Then we do education and awareness campaigns. We actually just had environmental awards that we actually did in July this year, where we awarded those people assisting Kouga Municipality with being green, introducing programs of water harvesting, being self-sustainable, like I've mentioned, the Crossway development that is having all of this in place. We are currently looking at some green waste composting and dealing with some companies to look at biomass pellets. We working together with a company in Kouga development, and we are just advertised for a chipping machine to actually get a lot of our green waste that's going to our landfill that we can turn into compost. Then there is a big focus on alien vegetation clearing. We had to submit to the Department of Environment and Forestry our plan of how we're going to deal with all the alien vegetation. So we've actually mapped all the alien vegetation in our area, and if we start removing it now, it's going to take us about 30 years to have all of this alien vegetation removed. Now, alien vegetation is also having a big impact on our drought because it's invading our watercourses. It is actually diverting the water flow that should be taking place. There is trees sucking up all the water. And this is the type of partnerships that we are actually looking at for support, and that is to actually deal with the alien vegetation. And that is why we started with thinking of making pallets out of all the alien vegetation. And that is something that we will be going into for our future planning. Then urban greening is very important to us. We have joined the focus of the President's call for planting 10 million trees. We have been planting almost like 3,000 trees per year. I think just for Arbor Day this year, we planted about 400 trees. We received another 600 trees just now, and we hope to actually be able to go onto our own drive of like 100,000 trees. So that's one of our targets. Again, we're asking for people to join us in this and maybe look at getting some carbon credits for all the trees that we will be planting. Because we're a coastal town, we've got a big surf, we've got the new St. Francis Groin projects. Even people are now looking for accommodation for this festive season, and all our places are fully booked. So ecotourism is one of our key focuses because we have our own game drives and everything that you can go and do in our Kouga area. So ecotourism is also one of the big things that we are currently focusing on. Now, as I've said to you, the pillars are waste management. So some of the waste management initiatives that we have been doing is we actually distributed 240-litre bins to all our residents. All new developments are getting a 240-litre bin so that we don't have bags and the birds and everyone scratching into the bags lying in the sun. And hopefully we will be able to continue with this program. We joined forces with IWASA, and for electronic waste removal or recycling. We've got a company that collects all our e-waste and they dismantle everything. And then obviously there's a market for that. And we've got 4 of these drop-off sites where people can take their electronic waste. Together with that, we're also doing oil recycling. So people can also bring their oil, and then also to our other drop-off sites, people can bring all recyclable material too. So we've started a War on Waste campaign where we explain to people what can happen if they continue dumping illegally. And we also do a lot of shop compliance, telling our shops that how they need to actually deal with old expired food. They can't just throw it in the street or what because of all the issues that we have with that. Then we do report on the department's electronic system of all the waste that we are recycling. We're currently standing at about 7% of our waste that has been recycled. Because our nearest markets are a bit far, so everything needs to go to Port Elizabeth, Cape Town or Durban. So, but we are, and 50% of our waste is on our landfill is actually organic. So that is why we would like to start with the composting and focusing on organic waste, minimizing recycling. We also partnered with some other companies in our areas. First Choice is one of our big companies in our area. We have a vending machine where people can actually take their recyclables and they get on their phone, they can get some money and then they can go to Checkers or anywhere and redeem those points that they have on their phone. So currently we have 4 of these machines in our area where people can actually take their recyclables, put it in there. They scan the code on the can or the bottle, and then the money goes onto their phone. We also continuously telling people where they can take their material for recycling. Then we've got 2 community-driven programs. The one is called In God's Hands, where they're actually giving moolah to their children when they bring their recyclables. And then we've got a very successful one here in Jeffreys Bay called J-Bay Recycling, where 300 children on a Monday, every Monday, bring their recyclables. And then there's a little shop, they get a token, what they call a moolah, and then they can actually choose to get a bread or they can buy school shoes, depends on how many tokens they've got. And it's a very successful program. And anyone want to know more about it can go onto the web and on the J-Bay Recycling and see what they are doing. So we've got a company that buys from them and it's very successful. Then we also have recycling stations at our Blue Flag beaches. We've got 2 Blue Flag beaches. The one is in Cape St. Francis, and the other one is in Jeffreys Bay, the main beach, Dolphin Beach. And we have recycling stations at our facilities and also in some of our parks. So on twice a year, we also have a program called Operation Toka Maak Skoon, where people can take out anything that they can't put into their waste bin and they can put it on the pavement. So we're actually busy with that this week. We started from the 17th of November till the 28th, where people can then put out bulky waste and we will go and collect it. But it's quite interesting to see that sometimes before we get there, there's already someone that have picked up maybe an old chair, a bench, a lot of wood comes out. So that has been a program that's been running now for the 3rd year, and it is very successful. Then we've done a waste characterization study, and that's why we know what we have on our landfill. We do beach cleanups specifically on environmental days. We get the community to come out and help us. We usually do one just before the season starts, and that will be at the end of November, where we encourage all our residents to come and clean our beaches. Not that they find a lot, because we have quite clean beaches. Then we have EPWP and CWP programs where we actually deal with illegal dumping. We also do a lot of campaigns. And then we've got a big recycling center at one of our landfill sites that has grown tremendously since we've actually started with getting more people involved in recycling. So other partners that we've got on waste management is Sustainable Seas Trust. I've already mentioned Iwasa, and then JB Fuels that is assisting us with the oil recycling. Another thing that is quite important to us is animal management. We actually giving a grant to our SPCA as well as two other environmental organizations. Like I've said, diseases don't only break out with humans, but we also need to look at the animals. So we've had rabies, as you all know, we had foot and mouth disease, and we as a municipality actually are in the forefront of actually dealing with these and try and resolve the problems. We have the animal swine flu. So we make people aware of, with all of that, with the influx of people, with the animals not having food. I mean, people sometimes can't even look after themselves, but they will have pigs or they will have goats. And those are the programs that we are very proactive in dealing with all our animal organizations. Currently, we have a program dealing with St. Francis Animal and the SPCA, and we also work with the Humane Society of South Africa, looking at what they call from pig to plant, introducing, instead of having pig farmers, but rather have people starting vegetable gardens. So those are some of the programs on our animals that we are doing. Getting back to our energy efficiency and our conservation, our mayor is obviously very proactive, and that is why I think we as Kouga Municipality are working so nicely, because we've got a very active council. We all work together. There's not too much red tape when we want to introduce programs. And like I've said, we've replaced our inner street lights, we've done all our community halls, and we've applied for a 160 kilowatt solar project that was approved, and we are busy working on that. And we're also working closely with the wind farms. Currently, we're having a program with the Impofu wind farm where they've actually allocated 50 people for us for a period of 5 months to look at specifically alien invasive removal, as well as greening some of our areas. So important for us is to have the partners, because on our own, we can't do it all. On the water management, I've indicated that we have dropped some boreholes in our areas, Jeffreys Bay, Mansdorp. We've also got boreholes on our landfill to actually test the water, the down water. We've put up additional charger tanks and other tanks. At the bottom there you can see that is our detection vehicle that we are very proud of, and that a lot of people has really come to look at. And then we've done quite a lot of pipeline replacements. The one was like a huge project that we've replaced all the old pipes, and you can't believe what you actually sometimes find under the soil, how old some of these pipes are. Then on landscaping, tree planting and beautification, we have joined, we've got a very active group called the Dorp van Dromers. With the Dorp van Dromers, we've started working with them from 2019, and we've been very successful in getting donor funding. We received funding from Lotto Land, for a project that we submitted together with them, where we've actually built a boardwalk. This Lotterland boardwalk featured internationally. So Kouga is quite famous for implementing projects when we get funding. So that is one of the things that we are proud of, that we don't use the money for something else. We actually put the money into the projects. So we currently busy with beautification of all our entrances to our towns. If anyone's been to Thornhill, we're busy doing the 2 entrances to Thornhill. We've always been proud of the entrances to Jeffreys Bay, but we are improving on that. We participate in all Mandela days. We planted quite a lot of trees during Mandela Day as well as Arbor Day. We are busy beautification of our road verges. We get trees donated by the wind farms, by DFFE. We've also put up a couple of sculptures in our town. We've got a guy that actually is a sculptor, and he has been kind enough to actually make some sculptures for us, and one of the ones are the whale tail. We've just done he's done the dolphin on the main beach and a couple of other areas, and then we try and rehabilitate all our illegal dumping sites by beautifying those areas. Then another program that we have is No Mowing September, where we put up these yellow boards to tell people that we're not going to cut the grass, we are feeding the bees. And you can see how beautiful it is when we do not cut the grass, or just let the areas grow a little bit. And that happens usually until the end of November, where we will then start cutting grass, and that just for the festive season. We launched a Milkwood Trail where we've actually identified 10 areas. You can actually start from our offices and walk. It's about 6 kilometers, and go and visit the biggest milkwoods in the Kouga area, or this is actually just in Jeffreys Bay. And we get quite a lot of school kids wanting to do and to go and walk this trail. So this is quite important for us to actually get children to also understand the value of nature, and to understand that you don't have to just look at the tree, but you can actually walk some of these trails. Then indicated our invasive alien plant eradication program, and also the creation of fire breaks. So this is quite important. So we have identified most of the areas where we are having a lot of fires, where we, together with our fire section, then actually do the fire breaks. We also do some controlled fire in especially areas where we know that there might be, especially when it's very hot and windy. So this is what we are doing together with the communities. We've also got a program in our informal settlements, where we actually give like a little compact fire extinguisher to some of the houses in our informal settlements, because you all know if there's a fire, then it's usually a big story where that's not only one shack burning, but a couple of them. So we do a lot of training to our communities on fire protection. Then the key things that I mentioned is our dune stabilization and rehabilitation. This is the dunes that we're having a major issue with in the Oyster Bay area. So unfortunately, due to the drought, we do plant a lot of vegetation, but if there's no water, then we just need to go and replant again. But we are working with the communities, and we've got communities actually propagating some of these plants for us, and we keep on trying to rehabilitate our dunes. We have actually from the Gamtoos Valley up till Oyster Bay, where we do have some of these programs to actually try and stabilize the dunes.
Okay, sorry, Christa, if maybe in the next 5 minutes, you can try to round up so that we can also make space for some of the questions as well.
Thank you so much. This is just what I've said to you. We do have a lot of public participation, community empowerment programs. We focus on the protection and enforcement. We've got people that we call them boots on the ground that actually helps us just checking that people don't litter, they don't do the wrong things, and deal with that. We're focusing on air quality management. We are the events capital, what I've mentioned. And these are just some of our partners that we are dealing with. That's really a big help to all of us. We actually just, as I indicated, we have blue flag status for 2 of our beaches. We just received 2 green flags for 2 of our areas for the ocean protection. And then we actually came second in the Greenest Municipality competition this year. We've also been awarded National Arbor Awards. So we do receive quite a lot of awards. And then just in conclusion, for us, our guiding principles is inclusivity and participation, transparency and accountability, evidence-based reporting, leave no one behind, resilience and sustainability. I thank you. As I said, I still have a lot to say, but this is just in short from us. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Christa, for that. I'll say eye-opening and intriguing presentation because it also begins to showcase what is it that other municipalities can also do. Before we take Dzingira, we have managed to strong arm Mr. Nolte from the Center for Municipal Asset Management, one of our partners. He will be sharing some insights after Dzingira has presented. And secondly, I've seen in the chat a congratulatory message to Ms. Mayunis of the Institute for Local Government Management. Let's also take that opportunity, both from our side as the Municipal Edge and Future Cities Africa, to congratulate you, May, because as the message says, you are one of our religious attendees and participants in these webinars. But going beyond that, there is something loading for 2026, but we'll keep that for 2026. Congratulations. I invite Dzingira to come in. What you can do, Christa, because there are some questions that have come through in the Q&A. Specifically, the 2 questions from David Yube. Welcome, which you can look at so that as you begin to deal with the questions, you can also touch on those. And I note the comments that are coming from Gift. I will be touching on quite a few of those as well. Dzingira, let me welcome you for your presentation, which I believe will add even more value from the input from Christa. Over to you.
No, thank you, Zolani, and once again, thank you for having us on this exciting show and obviously topic for the year. Firstly, I just want to say well done to Christa and the Kouga team. I think there's a great set of initiatives that you're working on. In fact, last year it was my first time going on holiday in that part of the world, and I actually passed by St. Francis Bay. So it's quite an amazing place. Went through the canals as well. So you do come from a very beautiful municipality. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off my camera because I'm going to present, so the bandwidth might not hold. So please excuse me, I'm not hiding from you. And I'm just going to put up a few slides. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk a little bit more about, firstly, how we frame ESG and sustainability. And then secondly, what is driving ESG and sustainability? Because ultimately, a lot of your ESG and sustainability work and green work is really being driven by consumers and what they're looking for, and it's also being driven by technology adoption. So if you don't mind, I'll just turn off my camera and then I'm going to present. Okay, perfect. So there's 6 topics that kind of drive sustainability, and I'll then weave them into how they may be relevant to municipalities. So the first one is this issue around net zero carbon industry transitions. So what a lot of industries are trying to do is they're trying to move towards a zero carbon or zero greenhouse emission state. Now, it's obviously a very, very difficult target to achieve, but essentially what you find around a lot of industrial players, manufacturers, is that they're trying to either better manage their water usage, which Christa spoke about. They're trying to use renewable energy sources so that they can reduce their reliance on the grid. And in some instances, if they're really advanced, they're even trying to look at new fuel sources for the vehicles, for example, such as green hydrogen. So that's one topic. And why this is relevant to municipalities is that municipalities house industries. So within a municipality, you have businesses there. So the businesses themselves are normally the biggest producers of your carbon footprint in a municipality, because naturally they're the ones who emit gases into the atmosphere, they produce effluent, they produce sewage. So that's the first step around these 6 elements of ESG and sustainability. The second one is around the circular economy. Now, one thing we never speak about within the space is that a lot of your carbon emissions are triggered by your purchasing decisions. So for example, if I'm a company and I pay for someone to come and deliver something to me, I'm creating additional emissions because I'm essentially financing those emissions. So what I'm trying to say is that the emissions that are generated by an entity, even a municipality, are not just related to what you do in your core business. So let's say, for example, your offices, they're also related to the suppliers that you engage with. So if the municipality, for example, has to rent out or lease out vehicles, the carbon emissions from those vehicles that you lease out to provide service delivery are essentially your carbon emissions, because you have paid for those carbon emissions, because they would not have been generated unless you paid for that service. The third one is around technology. As we see, a lot of organizations are moving towards the cloud. Now, initially you may say, what does technology and servers got to do with carbon emissions? But actually it does, because before we used to keep our servers on-prem, as we call it, on premises, physically. Now we use cloud storage, which obviously is shared with other companies, other organizations. And the question then becomes, from a municipality, how are you currently managing your servers, your data, your information, your IT infrastructure? And are there ways for you to shift it from physical infrastructure to cloud-based infrastructure? Because that essentially would reduce your carbon emissions. There's other elements as well that we also kind of help clients with as well. Some of them are simply around, so if you look at the fourth one, or the fourth one on the bottom, sustainability measurement, analytics, and ledger. It's simply just being able to calculate the carbon emissions so that you actually have a better perspective on what you are generating as an organization. Because there's a famous expression from McKinsey, which is you can't manage that which you do not measure. So unless you're measuring your carbon emissions, unless you have a rough idea of what you're generating and putting into the atmosphere, it's very difficult for you to manage it. And it's very important that you have some sort of ability to analyze your carbon emissions so that you can manage them. The final 2 are around leadership and development. I think it's important for municipality staff and government staff and all of us to learn. The sustainability space, green economy space keeps developing, it keeps changing, it keeps evolving. And there's relationships that can be developed, for example, with the University of Oxford that we have, where the SAID Business School, for example, offers sustainability training. I mean, we have local universities that are also investing in this space as well. And I think it's very important that we continue to learn, because I think if we don't keep up to speed with a lot of the changes that are happening around sustainability and the green economy, we'll be left behind. And the final one is around consumer. Sometimes we forget that consumers and citizens actually want green solutions, and I'll get into some examples as we kind of go through the deck. So these are the 6 areas in how we frame how you attack sustainability and ESG, and how you basically improve it. And these can be applied to municipalities, to the private sector, to SOEs, to MOEs. I've just moved the slide. If you can just let me know if the slide has changed. It's a slide with a few numbers and quite a bit of writing.
Yes, it has.
Okay, thank you, sir. So I'm not going to read through this because but I'll share the slides and you're welcome to distribute them to the attendees. But the burning platform for sustainability and ESG and green is driven actually by proper empirical evidence. So we've found that if you speak to C-suite members, so executives, a lot of them expect a lot of disruption in their businesses. Now, you may initially say disruption, what has that got to do with sustainability? But a lot of disruptive technologies are actually green technologies. So for example, a long time ago, for those of you our age who may remember this, we used to have typewriters. And we used to require ink for the typewriter, and you'd require paper for the typewriter. Simply moving from a typewriter to a computer was a sustainable activity because you went from using ink, you went from using paper, and you actually suddenly went digital. And if you look at a lot of technology adoption, it actually essentially drives green behaviors. Another example for all of us here, we all have bank accounts. As you move to using an app so that you can do your e-wallets, your transfers, and all the rest of it, it's much, much greener than you driving into a bank and dealing with a teller and emitting carbon emissions when you drive and you get there, and having the footprint of that banking branch, because obviously it requires power and water and ventilation. So simply moving to using an app is also green. So unbeknownst to a lot of people, technology adoption drives green adoption. The second box is around CSOs. So CSO is just a Chief Sustainability Officer. And a lot of them believe that they are going to be disrupted in terms of their organizations, in terms of how they think around sustainability. You saw from Christa's presentation, there's a lot of things you can think about sustainability. You can think about water leak detection vehicles. You can, I think Christa spoke about obviously renewables. She spoke about replacement of pipes. There's a lot of things that are going on there. And the question is, how do you prioritize all of these activities? If you look the bottom left box there, 24 billion that's being spent by Volkswagen, electric vehicles are a hot topic. And the question for municipalities will become, how do you integrate electric vehicles into your fleets, for example? You have lots of vehicles, you're driving around, you're doing all sorts of activities for service delivery. How do we adopt electric vehicles, for example, maybe as a way of reducing our carbon footprint? And then one final one I'll just pick, because I'm just picking from different ones. The 33% one, you can see it kind of in the middle, is around service expectations are higher. Now, interesting enough, if you look at service delivery, one of the complaints from our citizens in South Africa is that our service delivery is slow, it's manual. Interesting enough, if you move towards an e-government model where you do things more electronically, and I think a good example that we've seen in government in South Africa has been how we apply or reapply now for our either driver's licenses or our traffic discs, our license discs, for example, is that ironically, it actually does two things. One is you're going green because you're not having people queuing up at post offices, for example. They can do these things online. But secondly, it actually improves the service to the citizen and actually improves their perspective of a municipality. So the story I'm trying to shape here is that there's other drivers for sustainability, but it actually presents opportunities to adopt technology, and it presents opportunities to have happier citizens who get better service from municipalities. I'll skip this slide here because there's a lot of kind of writing over here. So maybe just skip this just to get to 2 more points. So EVs is quite a hot topic at the moment, electric vehicles. And all you're seeing on this graph, and don't be bamboozled by the many numbers, is you just have to look at the gray and the pink. And essentially, you can see that in a lot of countries, they are starting to procure more electric vehicles than they procure a normal combustion engine vehicle. This is really telling you where other countries are going in terms of kind of really advancing and moving in that direction. And here in South Africa, we are starting to see some limited adoption of electric vehicles, but this could be a very interesting opportunity for municipalities. As an example, some of these vehicles now are moving into the heavy industrial vehicles as well. So even vehicles for road maintenance, vehicles for the pickup of trash and recycling are also moving in the electric vehicle environment as well. So this also presents an opportunity for municipalities to think about your fleet, how your fleet is structured, maybe to run a pilot, get 1 or 2 vehicles in, assess the vehicles and their performance, get feedback from citizens around how they feel around these green vehicles, and potentially, add to your reduction in your carbon footprint. I then want to talk you through a very quick pilot as well. And like I said, I'm moving quickly because I'd rather we spend more time on people asking questions. In Gauteng in Alexander Township, we spent time designing a pilot for e-bikes, so an electric bike. So a lot of you have experienced last mile delivery. So I'm sure a lot of you use, Woolies Dash, or you might use Checkers 6060, and you see the man comes on a little motorbike and maybe they bring groceries to you, or whatever it might be. And the pilot that we worked with the SA Chamber of Commerce was to say, what if you were to pilot electric bikes? And initially they were like, what do you mean? We said, okay, so there are electric bikes that are available in South Africa. It works like a bicycle, but it has a battery. So what the battery does is the battery is able to take over when you're going uphill. And then as you go downhill, the battery can charge itself. And the components of this pilot were the following. You need the electric bike itself, which costs about 20,000 rands. The bike has a range of about 150 kilometers, which is pretty good. So you can, use the bike almost all day if you're making deliveries. It has a swap out system. Now, the way the swap out system works is that you pull the battery out of the bike and you replace it with another battery, and then you put the battery in a swap out system where basically it's charged by solar. And you just require a very small microgrid. In this case, it was a 50 kVA system. And then you have emergency scooters that kind of go around in case there are breakdowns. Now, the reason why we were punting this pilot with the township and the chambers was because it does a few things. So firstly, it's an opportunity to create entrepreneurs, because each of these entrepreneurs can then join the Uber platform, for example, or the Mr. Delivery platform and use these bikes. Number 2, it creates a new asset class. So if we think about the average vehicle in South Africa, if you want to be an Uber driver, for example, you probably need on average for your cheapest vehicle, maybe 200,000 rands, and you need a 200,000 rand loan. These bikes cost 20,000 rands, which means we could over time create an asset class and a loan class, which is easier to repay for entrepreneurs and which is less burdensome, and which maybe allows entrepreneurs that might be blacklisted, for example, to participate because it's a much, much smaller value for a bank to fund. It was also interesting for us because we thought it would create good learnings. So there'd be teaching around that as well, around green as well, because now our townships would start to experience green. Because if we are quite honest in South Africa, most of the experience of people around the green economy is really around the more well-off people. It's the person that can afford an inverter, can afford solar panels. It's the person that has the time to recycle. It's the person that has the luxury to water harvest. But if you look at our more indigent communities, many of them have never had the opportunities to think about green as well. And finally, just to end the conversation, because it's not meant to be a lecture, it's just meant to spark a few ideas. With this e-micromobility opportunity, we already identified financial inclusion as an angle, because we have 2.9 million people in South Africa who are financially included, and this would just increase that financial inclusion because of the value of the bikes, as I said earlier. If you look at our e-commerce market, it's highly untapped at this moment in time. Only 1% of our sales, of retail sales, go through e-commerce, and this could significantly boost that. It would help us as a country interact with global tech companies, because as you can see in the middle, there's a lot of companies that are already investing in the space, and it's a huge revenue market. Now, you may then say to me, before I finish off, you may say, why are you telling us all of this? What has this got to do with the municipality? Why I'm prefacing this, kind of coming from almost like a private sector background, is to say that there are opportunities that municipalities can then tag onto, for example. So for example, as a municipality, you may think about e-micromobility as a way of engaging with your citizens and providing them specific services. One of the examples, for example, in Alexander Township, is that they were considering using the e-bikes to do chronic medication delivery. So instead of people coming and queuing up at the clinics and overcrowding them, basically have scheduled and dispatched chronic medication delivery, which would be basically taken out by the bikes, as an example. Why am I telling you about electric vehicles? As we spoke about it, you have big fleets as municipalities. Maybe you need to think about that as an opportunity. We've talked about technology adoption as well. And if you can adopt technologies and look at e-government practices as well, that improves your relationship with your customers. It reduces their footprint in your offices. And it actually, over time, also reduces the carbon emissions that are generated because we are attracting people into our offices because they are coming to resolve complaints, engage with us, deal with issues. And I think if we can think about the green economy as technology adoption and improved customer interactions, I think it will go a long way to optimizing our municipalities and making this more of an opportunity than making it a piece of compliance. Thank you. That's all for my presentation.
Thanks a lot for that input. And the presentation itself, it really shows that for many municipalities, there are many considerations, there are many options in ensuring that indeed, in terms of greening our municipalities, in creating the resilience, but most importantly, the municipalities and cities that work for its people. Great input. But what I'd like you to do, Dzingira, there's a question that came in the chat from Margot. It's a question that is directed to Christa, but I believe you will also have some insights on how is the planning and managing the coordination and integration, specifically looking at the budgeting, because it's one aspect to have these strategies and these plans, but at the end of the day, the planning itself should translate to a budget. Then with budgeting comes financing. So I'd like you to touch at that point when I give you an opportunity. But before we transition to Mr. Nolte, we've got a poll from Dzingira and team, just to get a sense from the audience in terms of the questions and the data collection, which really seeks to look at the strategic lever is most critical, but which of those specifically for blueprinting a future-ready Southern African city? And in the audience, we've got quite a good number. At some point, we were at 101, which has dropped a bit to 95, 101. We've been transitioning around that number. It will be great for all of us to contribute and participate in this poll so that we can really get a sense in terms of the question itself, of which in terms of the options, at 35% at this point, it's more the building strong public-private civil society partnerships. And we've heard from Christa, also Dzingira touched on those partnerships. At number 2 at 22%, embedding climate risk assessment in all planning. And again, it touches again, Dzingira, on this question I'm posing, integrating the plans, but beyond integration, it has to be the financing. Currently at number 3, we've got aligning the IDP, SDF, and budget with resilience goals. And there is an interrelation. And I believe, looking at the questions, some municipalities still struggle with the alignment itself. It's also coming through in terms of the choices and answers that we are getting from the audience. Please, last minute, because this information is important. And again, the participation from the 96 of us, it will be great. We still have at number 1, the building strong public-private civil society partnerships. And in maybe staying on that one, specifically your public-private partnerships specifically with municipalities and infrastructure development, among other things. But the triple Ps also go beyond just the infrastructure. But it shows that from the audience, that becomes a critical element, but bringing in civil society, bringing in communities as well. That's great. So at number 133%, it's the building strong public-private civil society partnerships. We've got 24% embedding climate risk assessments. Then at 22, the alignment of the IDPs, your spatial development frameworks, and the budget. It also says a lot. On that point, colleagues, my panelists, let me allow Mr. Nolte just to share, I would say, insights, Mr. Nolte, based on your experience, the topic that we are exploring today, but also your expertise around the asset management space. We'll then get to dealing with the questions that have come through, both from the audience, and we had some that came through during the registration. Welcome, Mr. Nolte. Over to you.
No, I see I'm audible and visually there as well. Good day to all of you. I've been co-opted onto the panel, and I'm actually quite happy to share a few of my thoughts. Excellent, the presentation by Christa from Kouga, from that area, a beautiful area as well. I've had the pleasure of lecturing at Cape St. Francis in that hotel that's called by the St. Andrews. It feels almost like you're in some elite company when you're in that area. But a lot of the initiatives there are exemplary. One area that I believe is very, very critical is really in waste management. For years, it's been something that I think has been neglected to a big degree in this country. I was involved with the Department of Environmental Affairs when I rolled out the 2012 the new regulations that they promulgated then, and it's noticeable that not many municipalities immediately took on the responsibilities of not only doing everything that was required in terms of that, but also recovering from whoever is producing the waste, whatever the cost of that is. So we have neglected that. I know many municipalities are not doing that. They're not really costing that out to the consumers and not getting everybody involved in that. One area that I know that we have to pay quite particular attention to, and I've mentioned it in previous sessions as well on this platform, is on the management of stormwater. I think that's an area where we have seen over the last couple of years, and it's due to the increase in the temperatures worldwide. We see more and more violent storms and deluge of water in quite a lot of areas. So we have more water falling from the sky. So have we adapted our planning to cope with that? I don't think so. And as a matter of fact, in lots of areas, we have contributed to our own demise, where and I think all the coastal areas are actually a bit guilty on that, is that they've created a lot of buildings and parking areas, particularly where there used to be natural vegetation before. They've now built up all sorts of buildings with roofs, and the roofs are catching the water, let it flow down, and channeling that, and then it goes onto the parking areas, and where natural vegetation and the soil itself used to be able to manage that it just flows and it gathers momentum, and then we get all sorts of stormwater damage. We've had a lot of that in KZN, particularly in the coastal areas, but I've also seen some of that in the Eastern Cape, and it can happen actually in any coastal area where you don't properly manage that. So we have the capacity. I know now with virtual reality, one of the things that has been developed quite a lot over the last couple of years, where we can input our, the data, the geographical data of any area into a virtual reality platform, and then look at the effects of different structures that we actually plan to do in that area, and what will happen when we have a certain amount of rainfall. I mean, like 100 millimeters in a day, or 200, or whatever. We get that kind of stormwater going. We have the capacity now to do that, and I think we should really go into that area. What we have been promoting for quite a lot of years now already is to get specifically on the eastern seaboard, where there's quite a lot of undulating land, and a lot of that is communal land as well, is to get the communities to build retaining walls and to start doing terracing, on a major scale. It will have two effects. The one is really start managing the stormwater, slowing down the runoff, and then the other, obviously very importantly, we can generate employment for lots of people. Managing the stormwater, you can actually raise the water tables, as well as channeling water into certain areas where you can manage that into proper areas. So we have been promoting that, and I think that is something that needs to be investigated on a larger scale. I think the Industrial Development Corporation is willing to finance any projects on that sort of scale, which is for the common good. So it can be a way for municipalities to attract finance, on that platform, to actually promote that as such. Just some ideas on that. I know I've also been involved with talking to very clever chemical engineers that are working out plans how to convert plastic into fuel, and at the moment that's still not viable. But I know we're sitting with I think an area about the size of South Africa of plastic in the Pacific Ocean that is many meters deep, which we can go and convert, and that we can actually save a lot of other sources of fuel, carbon emissions, on that way as well. And lots of ideas.
No, thanks a lot, Mr. Nota. As you normally say, I know you can talk, but most importantly, it's the substance that you continue to draw from, especially from your insights. Just one person I would like to acknowledge, Claire van de Poel, the chairperson of SIGFARO, Western Cape. It's great to have you, Claire, and I believe we also have other, I would say, attendees that would have appreciated that acknowledgement, but given our partnership with SIGFARO, I thought let me flag that. Christa, I'll read out the questions that came from the municipal manager of West Coast District, just for the purpose of those who will be following the recording as well. The first one, how do you navigate the environmental legislation specific for disturbance of the water flow? And again, I believe you will be able to tackle that. Also, do you perhaps have legal advice in terms of planning legislation to relocate houses or protect the municipality from litigation. And then lastly, which is also a very interesting one, specifically for coastal cities or municipalities, have you considered desalination and related infrastructure? You can then answer those questions, probably linking to the one that came from the comment as well, in terms of dismantling the silos within municipalities, because one of the threats, you can have a department that is good at what it is doing, but if that integration doesn't go across the department within the municipality, and also aligning the plans, the budget, and ultimately financing, definitely will have insights on that. And then after you, I'll go to Dzingira. Over to you, Christa.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think if we talk about legislation, that is something that maybe we must take offline because it's such a big issue. For me, just to spend time now on the legislation and the issues that we are currently dealing with, like the houses that is under the sand, that or the house that is on the brink of landing in the sea. We obviously got a lot of legal opinions on that. At the end of the day, it's actually not the municipality's responsibility to protect those properties. So what from our side is we try, because if you're going to do one, you will have to do many. And it's not only about the coastal, but it's what about if there was a fire? What about that? So from that point, the advice that we actually got was that you will try and help as far as possible, but we cannot protect those houses, because we at one stage looked at maybe buying the house in Oyster Bay and just flatten it. But then if you do it for one, maybe in a year's time, 10 other houses will be under the same. The same with the house that is two old people living in the house that with no children, that the house might fall into the sea. We got the same opinion. If you do it for one, you will have to do it for everyone. So the best advice we can give is to the residents to say, listen, unfortunately, this is where our responsibility actually ends. Then on the issue about people diverting water, or the issue about people using some of the water courses. So that is where we usually work with the Department of Water Affairs. And as I'm sure all of you know, working with any of these departments is not easy, because the fact that we're so close to drought, where there's a lot of people that is actually taking water from the rivers and then diverting it to their own plots and farms. And that is not our competency to actually deal with the water, with that type of water. But we can be contacted, and we can give you all the documents that we actually have, where we've actually got these legal opinions, where we've actually been trying to deal with these specific cases. Then on the desalination, we obviously had a look at it, but for us as a municipality, it's just too expensive. To run that plant 24/7 will not be cost effective. So that's why we've been looking at alternatives. And for us, it was more the boreholes that we've been sinking, to look at alien invasive removal, and where we have some issues with the water. But this is still a long way to go, to actually deal with the drought, and specifically on the water. Just to link onto that, I also saw some questions from Kev talking about DFFE. We all know the issues that we all have with DFFE, also not having the capacity to do these things. We have issues with estuaries. Estuaries is actually not the responsibility of a municipality to manage. But due to the fact that the Department of Environment, in our case, DDR, cannot deal with the estuaries, we eventually take over. We're still waiting for memorandum of understanding from them to actually take on that responsibility. But at the end of the day, it comes back to the municipality. So requesting to some of these functions to be given to DFFE or to Department of Water Affairs, it's not that easy, because we all know how long it takes to get a national department to come out. Even our provincial departments are all under so much strain that getting support from them is not easy. I'm not sure if anyone is on the panel or on the talk today from these departments, and they may be able to tell us of how we can work on that. Then on the integration, I think what for us, because we're not a big municipality, so it's easy for us to all work together. Like when we had all the floods, from my department, we actually took funding to assist our infrastructure people, because what was more important for me to vegetate the dunes or for them to fix the infrastructure? So then we collectively made a decision that it's more important for all of us to get the infrastructure fixed. Unfortunately, it was not covered through the drought fund or to the disaster funding, because it was like infrastructure that maybe had to be maintained, and so we had to fund all of that ourselves. So often we will work together, but I think in a small municipality it's much easier than working in a big municipality where there's really silos. So most of the challenges that we are having are affecting our department, Waste and Environment, as well as our Infrastructure and Services Department, that is our civil and water people. So we've got no choice but to work together, because like the roads in Oyster Bay, for me to go and remove a dune and not clean the road, it's not actually worth it, because my trucks can't even get in there. So I will rather take my money and help the roads department to go and remove the sand from the roads than for me to go and just move a dune. So it's all about the priority and what is most important for all of us. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for that, Christa. And maybe touching on the last input that you just made, and for the benefit of Margot, we had one of our panelists who would have used the city of Joburg as a case study, specifically around this issue of alignment that you have raised. And it's a topic that we should be picking up in future again. But thanks for that, Christa. And Dzingira, as you begin to respond to the questions I posed earlier, I've got few that are aligned to that one. Specifically one that came from also one of our regular attendees, Duduzi Madonsela, on the role of public-private partnerships that they can play in financing infrastructure. And again, it's part and parcel of the statement I made earlier, but also all the way from Naledi, local municipality, we've got Ohense, who had posed a question, more a comment to say there is a need to lure partners, specifically investors, to roll out these innovative developments that we are talking about. So in addressing that issue of alignment, budgeting, and most importantly, financing, let me allow you to come in so that you can reflect on that.
Thank you, Zolani, and thank you for the questions. So I'll start my response by talking about the money that is available. There is a lot of money available for green economic work. And I'll give you a few numbers. So the Green Finance Corporation, which is a World Bank arm, are sitting on $25 billion of potential funding that they are struggling to deploy. So I'm going to repeat that number again. They're sitting on $25 billion. So you can multiply that by 18, or let's use 20 just to kind of round it up. And that will give you a perspective of what we're talking about. So you're looking at 500 billion rands, which they are struggling to deploy. Number one. Number two, every single commercial bank in South Africa has a green financing arm. They call it either financed emissions, or they'll call it green financing, or in some instances they call them green bonds, but they've actually ring-fenced money, which is basically used for green projects. The DBSA has a renewable energy fund. IDC, renewable energy fund. So the point I'm trying to make before we get into the questions is that there's a lot of money out there. So if the excuse is that there's no money, that's an excuse. The second point I want to mention is that the way that the financing is structured for green opportunities is that the green opportunity is ring-fenced. What I mean by that is that irrespective of the performance of the municipality, you can actually ring-fence projects that are green and still get funding, because the funding is not funded against the performance of the municipality, it's funded against the opportunity and the upside of the green opportunity. So for example, if you are able to go to a funder and say, we would like to, for example, start to generate solar energy, which we want to sell into our communities, the funder can work with you to package that so that the revenues from that project are ring-fenced, and so that they actually don't look at your municipality and its performance and use that as an excuse not to fund you. So step number one is there's lots of money available. Step number two is you can structure these green funding opportunities and ring-fence them so that the performance of the municipality is not to the detriment of you trying to get the funding. So if we now get into the questions which were around the PPPs and the partners, I think I've addressed the issue around the partners, and I think there are lots of partners that we can look at. There's, there's the International Finance Corporation. They are funding projects in Africa. World Bank is funding projects. We have local DFIs that are funding projects, and obviously we have the commercial banks that are funding projects as well. So I think that we can address that. Actually, there's no shortage of the funders. On the PPP side, obviously, it's a function of whether you want to do it as a PPP or you want to do it as an off-take type of investment. So what I mean by that is that on the PPP side, you have to bring some money to the table. That's why it's called a public-private partnership. And I'd assume that you'd need to engage with Treasury or someone else to actually provide you some of the financing. Or you can just look at it as a private investment, but have someone give you the right advice on how to structure the investment. What I will say about the PPPs and around the financing is that the projects need to be sizable. So no one is going to fund projects that are small around recycling and all these type of things, because those areas are quite well understood. But where you will get access to significant funding will be for big projects, the kind of things around, like I said, renewables, around recycling plants, biomass plants, electric vehicle fleets, replacement of your fleets, for example, smart buildings. Those type of investments will more easily attract funding. Now, you may ask and say, why is that? And then I'll stop talking. But the reason behind that is that for a lot of funders, it is much, much easier to justify larger investments than it is smaller investments, because they have to do the same amount of work and the same amount of due diligence for them to provide you financing. So they would rather you bring them something which is sizable. So hopefully that answers the questions, Zolani. Thank you.
No, thanks a lot. It does, and it touches, I'll say, at the core of the message itself, because as you put it, there is always this understanding, and sometimes it's a perception on funding. It goes back to, do you have a plan? It begins there. What are you trying to address? And how do you institutionalize that which you have? Then definitely that will unlock the funding aspect of it. I do fully agree with you. As we edge closer towards, I'll say, our closing, because I'll be giving our panelists as well just a few last reflections. Mr. Nolte, there's a question that came as well, and I believe based on your experience. It came all the way from the University of Lagos, from Professor Adiwale Alede. What role does urban players have to play in achieving green, resilient, and thriving South African cities of the future, and perhaps looking at what are the normal major barriers that the same cities or municipalities will then face in that particular role. And as you probably gather your thoughts in answering that, as we will be taking a round for closing. Christa, there's also a question that came from Tlakanipo in Kwadukuza, and this is also one of the municipalities that is always represented in our webinars. The first part, it's more on what do we need to rethink, and I believe operating not only in the municipal space, talking about climate adaptation, I would say there is a lot, but your insights will be great. But Tlakanipo also raises another issue specifically around why can local government persuade communities and businesses to integrate best practices. And again, in your presentation, you touched on those collaborations, working together. And also you have touched on some of the questions that came from the comments, specifically the issue of inclusive engagement or participation, which you can touch on as you are reflecting on the closing. Mr. Nolte, let me just allow you, just specifically the role of urban planners. And it's a question that comes often because there is this view, and in some cases it might not be incorrect, which links to the integration I was talking about, to say we talk about all these strategies, but more often those key, I'll say, officials or people who can add value within the value chain, being the planners. How do we then center them in terms of the strategies, the plans that we have, so that as we go out, even looking for funding, identifying the partners, if their plan is not strong, which should be informed by the planners, we are likely to have challenges. What's your take on that?
Sure, yeah. This is a topic that I think we can have a full 2-hour session on or more. But I think where we've failed over the last 20 odd years is that we haven't followed the legislation of how we should be going about developing plans. You know, in 2001, we had the IDP regulations coming out, which instructed all municipalities to work in collaboration with the districts and the national government. In other words, do not go about forming your own plans and without aligning that with the national structures and the provincial and the district structures. So we haven't done that. We haven't performed that. And then we had the Spatial Development and Land Use Management Act coming out as well, which instructed all municipalities. That's about a dozen years ago that came about, which instructed all municipalities to formulate that spatial development framework from which to work. So and I think most municipalities are sort of doing that just to comply with legislation, but not really investing in it properly to say, well, are we applying, you know, all the principles in there? Do we have exactly the demographics correct? Do we have the future planning correct? It's not. I don't think it's happening on a municipal level. I have been involved, and I'm not a urban planner. My background is more from the financial side, but I got involved in engineering and planning side, you know, through asset management. And we haven't been doing enough of that to make sure that the planning is done correctly. And that is where it's so critical to make sure that municipalities do not work in isolation, that they actually work in conjunction with the district, then the provincial government perhaps, but I would definitely say the national, you know, the national plans for an area. I think you mentioned the Department of Water Affairs, Environmental Affairs. All of those should be very much, involved in even up to the local level. And then the important aspect that we should never forget is we tend to work from the top down. We formulate plans and say, okay, yes, we're going to do this, and we do not go to the communities, the people on the ground that actually they know where the water flows. They've been there. They've been putting sandbags out to keep it out of their houses, etc. I mean, they should be involved. The community should be intrinsically involved in all of this. So that's where our planning. I think that's where we need to go in the future. We can
Wonderful.
be better.
Wonderful. And indeed, as you are proposing, it's something that we must look at, because the issue of urban planning, bringing planners on the table, but broadly beyond planners, the engineering work, because in some corners, there's still that. It's not a belief or an understanding. It's the issue of capacity internally within municipalities, which then force those who might not have the capacity to look for the capacity outside those institutions. But then for some of the municipalities, those key roles, if there are no officials internally, they then become forgotten departments or roles. Then that hampers the planning itself. That would be great. I will be allowing you, Christa, to come in just as we take the closing. You can also make the closing remarks linked to the earlier comments and questions that I have made around the rethinking and the related matters. I would like to address one thing that came very early from Gift, specifically around risk management, because what you are raising, that we really need to take risk management seriously. But one of the challenges, apart from the fact that we are dealing with this topic, which on its own, risk identification and management becomes important, but generally risk management in our public service, specifically at municipal level, it's an area that needs attention, because normally it's a skill, it's an area that should be there every start of the year. You are doing with the plans, your budgeting. Risk management forms a part of that, and then it will go then beyond in identifying, I'll say, the climate-related risks and how the municipality should then be responding to that. But risk management as a subject, as a focus area, we need to do a lot on that area as municipalities. But also, there is a question from Themba Ndlovu, and again, we appreciate that, specifically on the benefits of the green economy to the local rural communities. The response won't link necessarily to the G20 summit, which you are referencing. In our previous webinar, and also linking to Christa's presentation, we focused on localized development, looking at infrastructure and skills, but then we focused more on waste management or waste collection. The idea there was also to say, when we talk of development, let's not only think about the big cities or big municipalities. In the local municipalities, even those rural ones, there could be projects and programs, as I've made an example, waste management, as we have seen in Christa's presentation, even involving the younger generation in ensuring that as they grow up understanding very well that it's not only about protecting the environment, but there are economic benefits in the work that they do. But then in green economy, all the three panelists have touched on the importance and also ways on which one can participate and contribute towards that. As I hand over to Christa, there is a request, Dzingira, from David Ube in sharing your contact details. We can do that on our side as well, but just for you to take note of that. Christa, as you wind up your contributions, your input that has come through this morning, but also gauging from the insights from the audience, what could be your closing remarks in ensuring that all those questions and comments are addressed?
Thank you. It was very interesting to listen to everyone and also to get all these questions. Unfortunately, with the time that we have, we can't answer all the questions because I see Temba had quite a lot of questions, and Jamaya still wanted to know about our public education, but you are welcome to send me an email or to contact me or to come and visit, and we can have further discussions. Also, I want to say to the consultants on the panel I'm listening today, we put out quite a lot of tenders, but I never see any of you actually tendering because maybe we're too a small municipality for you to be interested in doing our environmental management framework or any other of our studies that we are looking at. But just in summary then, for us it is leave no one behind. We have seen that when someone knocks on your door and says, listen, we want to participate, there should not be long winding processes for them to assist. When we had the Dorp van Drome knocking on our door, we said, yeah, we will work together. So we've actually made a budget available specifically if they need paint, then we will buy the paint for them just to help us to things that we can't get to. So I think one must maybe just look around you, the same that we have with the wind farm. The wind farms knock on so many people's doors, but because of the processes, they never actually get to go and assist where they actually would like to. And maybe it's just because of us. We've got like open door policies. It's a quick report to the council for approvals of these things. And we've got a very active team, and I think the passion is there. And I think that is quite important for people to all work together to know what is the challenges in your communities. And like was said, there's money out there, but have your business plans prepared and see on what doors you can knock. But again, thank you so much for this. I think this seminar is really helping quite a lot of us. Instead of spending time to fly to Cape Town to go and learn what they are doing, just to have these and share some of the knowledge that we all have and the experience, because some of us has got many years of experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christa, and we hope to host you in our future webinars. And for the benefit of our audience and those who might not have been aware, there are quite some awards that Kouga Municipality has won most recently. I'll just quote one. The 2025 Municipal Performance Award, which has been awarded by the South African Property Owners Association. I know also from the Ratings Africa indices, Kouga is one of the municipalities that is on the shining light. We thank you for your contribution, and we wish you all the best in all the efforts beyond our conversation today that Kouga is involved in. Dzingira, your last parting shots, but also touching, I'll say, maybe on the issue that David is also raising, but you'll be able to sum that up.
Sure, thank you. And please, if you don't mind reminding me of the issue that you want me to address from David. Just
No, David, it's just the issue of the upgrade of the waterworks, but perhaps it's more an application for a new plant that they might be looking for. But it's also David who requested to link with you specifically around.
Yes, yes. Okay, understood. Yes, yes. No, so firstly, for that request, yes, very, very happy to link up with you, David. The organizers have my contact details, so yes, I'll be very happy glad to talk to you. And I think to Chris's point, there's no such thing as a small municipality for us. I think perhaps we do get a little bit stretched, obviously working with different clients, but we would be more than glad to engage, understand some of the interesting projects that you're working on, and even if it's not to do work with you, it could just be simply for knowledge sharing as well. So I hope that we do keep in touch. I think there's a few parting shots for me. I think because I mean we've spoken ad nauseum, I think, about some of the issues that we're facing. I think maybe a few things to say is one is you should not feel alone. The issues that the municipalities are grappling with, interesting enough, the SOEs, the MOEs, and even the private sector are grappling with. And yes, admittedly, depending on the liquidity of the organization, some organizations are a little bit further ahead. Depending on their capacity, they're further ahead. But ultimately, we are all grappling with these issues. In fact, even at Ntiyiso right now, we grapple with our own internal ESG sustainability green strategy. You know, what as a consulting firm, what more can we do to reduce our carbon footprint, to engage clients in a more digital manner, etc. So everyone grapples with this. So firstly, I think my first point is you're not alone, and I think that's quite important to say. I think the second point, and I'll repeat what I said earlier, is that there is money available for these opportunities. I think in South Africa, we tend to see money as only treasury money or tax receipts money, but there is a lot of money that is floating around, which is looking for these projects. And in fact, it's extremely underutilized money because we tend not to go look for the money. Unfortunately, the money will not come in looking for you, so they will not come to a municipality to speak to you, because also they sometimes have biases or they misunderstand how municipalities are structured. So I think it is incumbent upon ourselves to do a bit of hustling. We need to put together our projects, put together interesting pipelines, put together our plans, and we need to just get out there and speak to people. But the nice thing about municipalities is that because of the fact that you essentially oversee thousands and thousands of citizens, people will listen to you. So if you approach Nedbank tomorrow, they will speak to you. They're not going to ignore a municipality. So you already have significant power and people want access to your citizens. So from that regard, you mustn't be worried about people not engaging with you. The key question is to be prepared before that engagement. And then I think the final point, maybe I just want to share before I hand back to our moderator, is I think just think broadly. There's lots of things you can do. I think we've talked about desalination plants, renewable energy plants, electric vehicles, e-bikes, you know, digitizing your services, you know, moving to the cloud. There's a lot of things that you can actually do which are green, and sometimes we do narrow down our focus on green to purely environmental issues. And it's not just an environmental issue. Some of the issues are also just our ways of working. And like I say, even right now, this call that we're on, where we're using Teams or Zoom, is a green way of working together. So just think widely around what green looks like, and it will open up opportunities for you, it will open up funding for you, and hopefully it will improve your relationship with the citizens that you serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Dzingira. And on behalf of the team again, to the Ntiyiso Consulting Group family, we are grateful for the collaborations that we've enjoyed over these years, and we look forward to 2026. Mr. Nolte, I'll be giving you the last shot, but as I do that, there is a comment that came from Claire, which is also important, specifically when looking at the plans, that even the old ones, there might have been legislations in transition to the ones that we have. And that's one of the conversations as well on the legislations, because I see also another comment, just that I missed it now, specifically around the Municipal Finance Management Act, to say, let's look at these legislations so that they drive and inform our plans. Mr. Nolte, your final remarks.
Thank you. Yes, it is important for us to look at all legislation applicable, yes. But I don't think we should be fully just dictated by that. A lot of what we're doing and what we're planning to do should be based on what we can see and what is common sense and what the best possible advice that we can attain from knowledgeable practitioners that have been in the area for decades. We have access to quite a number of people with that type of information, the knowledge, where they can, give you valuable guidance. But I think the important, and I said that before, we must talk to the communities as well. The people that have been living in your area, for a long, long time. They were there before we started polluting it so badly. They were there before we started building all sorts of things and redirecting stormwater. So I think we need to make sure that we communicate with the community. Go and talk to the old people, those with the grey beards. They will be able to help you. Thank you.
To our panelists, let me take this opportunity to thank you for the time that you've made today in looking at what is a very important topic, which is not going away anytime soon. But most importantly, judging from Christa's presentation, micro actions do count. Never look at what you do and try to match it with a bigger city. If it works at your locality, focus on it, ensure that you see it through. But in doing so, something that Dzingira as well has touched on, to say you are not alone. And again, this platform, we have created it also for that purpose, not only to exchange knowledge, to share what we do, but also to expand the network so that when you find yourself stuck, it could be a specific subject that you would like to reach out. You've got the network available to you, as we have seen even in this particular webinar, where people are connecting for good reasons. We do appreciate that. To our audience, you've always been great, and you've come this far with the webinar series. As I've indicated, it's our last this year. We look forward to see you in 2026. One thing that I can assure you, Dan, myself, and the teams are already cooking. And I see Dan has raised the hand as well. Maybe he will want to pass some message. We are getting ready for 2026. We believe and hope we will see you then, so that we continue ensuring that we have this platform available. It's informative, it's educational, but most importantly, it also expands your own network. Before I actually close off, let me allow Dan, and some of you might be seeing him for the very first time. Over to you, my friend.
Thank you, Zolani. Good afternoon, everyone. I usually show my face once a year. This is it. Usually in the background, trying to make sure that things don't burn down. But Zolani, you've been thanking everyone for this entire year. And I want to take this opportunity to thank you for being such, well, as I usually say, the world's best moderator. If I didn't know that you actually had another job or do other work, I thought you would do this full time. But thank you for always keeping these impactful conversations together. And those of you who've been following the conversations for the year, it is just, you'll know exactly what I mean by doing this. So thank you for being you. Thank you for always being calm. Usually when I'm not always the calm one, Zolani is the, the yin to my yang, or whatever they say. But I'm looking forward to 2026. As you said, we've been cooking already, and just watch the space. Thank you to everyone for joining this discussion, the speakers, the sponsors, and the audience. Thanks a lot. See you next year this time.
And now you make me cry.
This is why I'm doing this at the end and not at the beginning, because your head would have been so big you wouldn't have been able to moderate the session. So.
No, thanks a lot for that, my friend and brother. But as I've indicated, we are at the end this year. We will see each and every one of you in 2026 with quite a busy schedule, as I've indicated, because we've got more surprises, but keep tight. The year will start quite soon. Goodbye, everyone, and enjoy.